Hey everybody, welcome back to the RDCember. Where you voted for the top 12 units, the best units in Wargame, yada yada yada. We're down to the 4 best units, unless I'm mistaken. 4 or 5, I think it's 4, right? It is 4. So 4th best unit today. I'm not gonna say it, you know, what I've been saying in the past episodes. Let's jump right into it. It's the unit that you can't see, or the other unit that you can't see. Already had the Night Tongue last time. This time we're talking about the tank that you can't see, the M84N. And can I just say one thing? I think this was actually the unit with with the highest variety of typos. People have been sending in M no hyphen 84 hyphen AN, M84AN with no hyphens, M84A hyphen N, Stealth M84, and so many varieties. It took me, this is probably the unit that took me the longest to actually get like a good or like a good idea of how many votes there have been, right? If a unit has been only sent in once or twice and it just horribly, written, whatever. But for the units that I expected to be like top 10 or top 20 at the very least, I obviously took effort so that I could, catch every vote for that. And my god, for this was probably for which it was the hardest, right? Because for the longbow, for example, right, I could essentially just say, okay, anything that contains the word bow, just turn into H64D longbow. Right? For the 84A, it wasn't actually that easy because there's also the normal M84A that might have actually made it into the top 10 or something like that, right? So I couldn't just say, okay, everything with 84 just turn into M84 again. So it was such a nightmare. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about the unit. I think it's pretty obvious. In case you don't know, this is obviously an incredibly strong unit. It has been nerfed with the South Africa patch, so did the M84A. M84A is still a very good unit. It was also like a too strong unit before it was nerfed. Now I think it's fine. It's still very strong, but I don't think it's like ridiculous levels anymore. The 84N honestly still is. 84A is kind of okay. Why? Well, there's multiple reasons. For one, it inherits the same kind of good things the 84A has, right? It has an autoloader, which is always nice to have. 8 RPM is fine. It's nothing to scoff at, but it's also not amazing. Given that it's autoloaded, that's still pretty good. Most Blue 4 tanks, for example, in this price range have 9 RPM. At least when it comes to Abrams and Leopards, which are probably the most common tanks in this price range. There's obviously Chieftains and Challengers, but nobody really cares too much about them. But the most, and then of course there's a Wilk, for example, with 9 RPM. But 8 RPM is still solid. There's plenty of 8 RPM, right? With all the D72s essentially, other than the Wilk, of course. Anyway, 8 RPM is fine, especially that it's autoloaded. But what is even finer is that unlike pretty much any other Red 4 autoloaded tanks in this price range, it has excellent accuracy, right? I think it has better accuracy than the T72BU. Or the same accuracy and like better stabilizer or something. Yeah, look at this, right? This is just crazy good. Even for like the normal 84A, of course, as well. Um, that's a nice bonus. Just like any other 125mm gun, 4 AG helps with the AG output as well. But very good gun. 19 AP is a good threshold to have because it means you scale exactly to 30 AP in force at like the max range in force, I should say. Which means that which is obviously 30 AP is obviously the cap for kinetic AP. You can't get higher than that. So that's a nice threshold to have. Just one step below max range, you start one-shotting 2 armor, so at 20 AP. Some nice little thresholds. 15 armor is solid. You still get one-shot by 30 AP heat. You still get double tap by 23 AP heat, which is, for example, the up class. So it's not like an amazing armor value to be at. But honestly, honestly still prefer it over 16 armor like the base leopard, the leopard 2A1, because 16 armor still gets double tapped by 30 excuse me, one tapped by 30 AP. 23 AP isn't the most important threshold, so I think that one armor isn't worth that much to pay for. So honestly, I think I'd prefer to be cheaper than and have 15 armor. 2 top armor is not very good. 8 side armor is fine. Honestly, it's acceptable. 2 top armor is pretty low though. But it's not that horrible because 75 kmh off-road speed, especially with this autonomy, is very good. You can hunt down tanks, especially for stuff like chieftains challenges if they try to retreat. from you. They're just, essentially sitting ducks really compared to your off-road speed. Only really the T80 UM, like I think the AV Hor can top that, or basic V Hor, and something like the the Hellcat. Is it a M4, M18? M18? I think M18 Hellcat. Yeah, that's like 100 km off-road. But the off-road speed is obviously amazing. Autonomy on top of that, right? T80 UM, for example, which of course also has amazing off-road speed. All the T80s have pretty good, right? None of them are below 70. T80 UM 80, but on only 450 kilometers off-road speed autonomy. You actually tend to run. If you keep this tank alive, you actually do run out of fuel at some point, most of the time. So it inherits all these very good stats. The only real downside is honestly 2 top armor. Given the price, right? Of course, more armor, more AP is always better, but you have to pay for that. And of course, to actually get to the AN specifically, stealth and optics. Not just good optics, but very good optics. For just 15 points, it's honestly pretty ridiculous. You spot stuff. You can and will spot infantry that's trying to ambush you before it's even in anti-tank weapon range, right? You can spot enemy tanks in cover or stuff in cover, and if you're shooting at long enough range, especially if you're in a forest, you won't even get spotted, of course, because you have stealth as well, right? If you actually get to the actual stats, you have a ground optics of 170, you spot better, more than twice as fast, and you have a stealth value of 1.5, right? That is just, you're both harder to detect and you spot easier, right? And that stealth adds so much to its survivability. It's crazy. It's just, yeah. Medium stealth on tanks, or basically anything that can fight, is obviously very, very strong, but even more so on like a medium tank that is already, this is the tankiest thing in the recon set, basically. If you just go purely by armor and stuff, you could of course argue that recon infantry at 10 HP is actually a bit tankier because they have better stealth and yada yada yada. If you want to be a pedantic, but yeah, obviously the direct competitors are like the Pure and PSV, the CDQ, the OG stealth tank, and the Vercanning. The 3 biggest competitors. That's not Vercanning. Honestly, it's a very similar flag, okay? All of those 4 tanks, 3 of them are DLC. Yeah. I don't think that's really on that much to tell about like the stealth and optics. It's kind of pretty obvious what they do. They're both incredibly helpful. The stealth more so than the optics in my eyes, but both, of course, very, very strong. I think in hindsight, you should probably just not give freaking tank stealth, or just a tiny bit of stealth, maybe something like 1.2 or 1.15, a little bit maybe. But the 1.5 stealth is ridiculous. Better optics, I think, is something you can definitely live with, because at the very least, you will still be able to, if assuming you don't have like 1.5 stealth, you would still pretty much be able to spot them almost as easily as normal tanks with your own recon, for example. So I don't think optics are the issue. It's more like the stealth itself is an issue, and having optics on top of the stealth makes the stealth kind of even worse. Makes any sense? Yeah, either just no stealth or just very little stealth, and maybe also make stealth not only dependent on if it's a tank, but also like kind of in a sense the size of the gun or something. Of course, there's a noise value to each gun, but I feel like that should, on top of that, also maybe reduce the actual base stealth value. So stuff like that is a bit lighter, smaller. Like, I don't know if it's really smaller IRL, but CDQs, Vercanning, C55s, I think maybe they could have something like 1.3, the 84A and 1.15, and then obviously they probably gotta get nerfed, but small stuff could maybe sit at 1.5, right? The actual small stuff. Don't get me wrong, I feel like all vehicles like these, especially M41, probably still too strong. In general, recon vehicles are a tad too strong for the most part, but this is about the 84, of course. Honestly, definitely deserves to be in the top 4. I certainly agree with this. Yeah. 3 units to go. Let me know what you think those are. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Oh, don't bye-bye. I actually totally forgot. The charts, because it's actually kind of interesting. The 84N got the most amount of number 4 votes and the third highest amount of number 2 votes. I think this is the first unit, unless I missed one. Yeah, this is the first unit that has, any top 3 values in any of the votes, meaning all the most, second most, and third most votes of any of, the ranks are all scattered across the top 4 units, right? If you understand what I'm trying to say. Um, and then, yeah, you can see a good difference to the Nighthawk. Another small jump to the next unit, and then reasonable jump to the second best unit, and a huge jump to the best unit in the game, according to you guys, of course. But now, actually, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye bye. On the ninth day of Christmas, Eugen sent to me 984's hiding 8, Nighthawk's cheating 7, Eriko's flanking 6, Kernus is bombing 5, 27s, 4 Tigers fighting 3, LSTRs 2, Legion 90s, and the Swedish Beacon 1C. Fuck me.